Yeah, I'm connected. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
So, yeah, did you get a chance to look at those MI slides?
Your head's a little bit red.
Yeah, I'm hot.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
You didn't get a sunburn?
What?
You didn't get a sunburn?
No.
Oh, okay. I totally forgot about it. Damn it.
That's okay.
Other stuff.
What's that?
I got busy reading other stuff.
Okay.
Should I stop and review it real quick?
Well, you can't really review it really quick because there's 116 slides.
Oh.
But you can look through, I mean,
You can, if you want, you can provide it to everybody and you can just skim through them and stop on the ones that you think are really important, and then they can just have it to look at later.
yeah. Well, I'll just do my normal MI training like I normally do, and I'm happy to share the slides with everybody, so that if I do skip over something, they can do something. Why does it say recording?
I don't know. That's weird.
That is weird.
Maybe I've come in as the host and it records it because I'm the first one here or something. I don't know.
Did you initiate the meeting?
I can't change it either. Oh, I think I have to click record to please request record permission from the meeting host. I guess it's not recording. Maybe that means it's not recording. It's flashing red.
I've never seen a recording flashing red before.
I haven't either. I don't know what that means.
I think it means it's recording.
Well, I just clicked on record and it says you can only record with permission from the meeting host.
And you're not the meeting host?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
I'm not.
Okay. So I'm just looking through what you emailed me, and starting with the addiction being a stress response illness, connect this illness theory to treatment approaches that address stress rather than just focus on removing the addictive substance. So that's where memo to self, I think, has some really cool analogies.
Like
For how to explain that. What's that?
Like slices of cheese? Or something else?
Or pleasure unwoven. I think I'll just kind of use my hand model, and then I'll refer everybody to those resources. Have you watched Pleasure Unwoven?
I don't think so. I think no. I don't have a DVD player in my computer. To wait till I get back to Labrador to play it.
Right. Hold on, let me stop multitasking. Trying to close my inbox. So
does that make sense? Do you know can you kind of outline what in your mind what you would say about it being a stress response illness, and maybe it's saying something like, you certainly have to put the substance down and have physical abstinence or recovery, and the class has talked a lot about the impact of the substances on the brain and the impact on the brain once you remove the substance, and the clarity and the healing that happens. But, all the data says you're detoxed physically within 5 days. And then it's psychological and it's mental and it's the relapse prevention and everything else that underlies the addiction that we don't talk a lot about.
Sure. Yeah, I think, I just point them in the direction of the Institute for Addiction Study, and just kind of use the stress diathesis model. So, if you have, this water bottle and you have a variety of stressors, there's, emotional stress, financial stress, social stress, um, physical health stress, spiritual stress, a lack of meaning and purpose, unresolved trauma. The more that you have that's not being treated, the closer you are to the next, um, the more heightened the midbrain becomes to stress. And the midbrain has tagged various behaviors such as compulsively eating, alcohol, sex, gambling, as being really good at relieving that stress in an acute manner, right? And the midbrain, just like a reflex, is pre-conscious. So you move out of the way of a speeding car without thinking about it, because your midbrain is a old part of your survival mechanism, and a relapse can be pre-conscious, right? It can be premeditated and you can know that you're going to do it, but it can also be pre-conscious, and you can find yourself in the middle of a relapse and wonder, how did I get there? Well, it's a lack of perception and management of stress in the stress diathesis model. And as that midbrain becomes active, the prefrontal cortex, which is choice, meaning and purpose, having a job, holding open doors for a nice little lady, that all goes dark because the midbrain is running the show, and your ability to choose becomes severely impaired as the stress goes up in a variety of areas, life domains, is how I explain it.
I think that's great, Chase. I like that a lot for our audience, especially. Yeah. And then just tie into how you use MI and how you use mind-body bridging, kind of thing.
Yeah. Hold on. So after I explain that kind of stress diathesis model, now let's move into understanding how we start to treat addiction and how we start to understand treating addiction through the lens of motivational interviewing, which is designed to move people through the states, the is it Norman and Prochaska?
Prochaska, I don't remember the second guy.
Prochaska and someone else's stages of change. And one other modality that I'll touch on called mind-body bridging, which is I found to be helpful in the perception and management of stress, since this is a stress response illness.
I love that. So do you want to do an intro?
What?
An intro about what you're going to talk about?
Yeah, so primarily I'll spend most of my time talking about motivational interviewing and how that's applied to treating addiction. And then I'll touch on how I view addiction as a stress response disease. And then I'll touch on mind-body bridging as a modality to address the stress response disease nature of addiction.
Okay.
And I'll start with the brain and the hand model with the water bottle, the stress diathesis model.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something that I don't touch on, feel free to say, Chase, could you talk more about blah?
Okay.
I got to use the bathroom. Can you give me a second?
Sure.
My Zoom thing. Hi, I'm not quite on, but I wanted to see if I could get in because I'm at my friend's.
Oh, okay.
So I'll mute myself because I have an issue going on. All right?
Okay. All right.
Or I'll do, okay?
Sure.
Okay, there.
Mhm.
So can I share my screen? Oh yeah, I can.
I think David is the host, and I think once he comes on, he can give you the ability to share your screen.
Well, I have a button that says share screen. Am I sharing?
Yeah, you are.
Can you see the motivational interviewing?
Uh-huh. Oh, perfect. Okay.
So,
I'm just eating my lunch.
heyo.
Did you get some lunch?
I have some protein bars.
I bought some halibut at Herman's. It was a little pricey, but it was super good fish.
I bet. I bought some salmon in Boston. That was insane.
Was it fresh from the?
Yeah, it was like it was a different looking color. They had like one kind of salmon, and then a more expensive salmon that looked like just higher quality. And it was so freaking good. I ate it every morning for breakfast. I just bought a huge slab.
So you're gonna meet David and Judy, his mom, and I know David lives in Boston, and I think Judy does too. David works, I think, at Boston Medical.
When did you start wearing glasses, Mom?
Like 2 years ago. I have to wear them to read.
Right.
Yeah, it's annoying.
I feel your pain. How many people are we going to have again?
The invite went to the entire group, so we could have as many as 16 or 18, I think, but I don't think it, because it's a worldwide group in different time zones. I don't think that I wouldn't think there'd be more than like 5 or 6. But I think David can record this and put it in a file where people can access it.
Sure. All right.
So I guess I'll act as host, Chase, and I'll also in that capacity I'll introduce you.
Okay.
Until everybody's here.
So right now, all you can see.
It's Judy, and I just thank you for coming, Chase. I appreciate it. I'm just a fellow student, and I am a food addict through and through.
Yeah,
An absolute one in recovery, thank you, God. So,
yeah, I'm happy to be here, Judy. Good to meet you.
yeah, and I think, I know Leora was really going to try to come. She's in Israel, but it's late there, 7 hours ahead. And I think Erin was planning to come unless something happens. You know, I know that I made sure to invite a few people that, you know, and I know David will be on, and Cindy's planning to be on. I'm trying to think who else we talked to, like, particularly. So, I mean, I told Sherry about it even before, you know, before the group went out. So I guess it will depend. My daughter is a counselor, working somewhere else, but her husband had surgery, some oral surgery today, so she didn't think she could come, but she wants to see the YouTube. So she does a lot of dual diagnosis stuff, and she's a food addict too, so she was really looking forward to it, but she couldn't make it. But I figured you didn't mind if I invited her, right? So figured the more the merrier, right?
Yeah.
You know, I just got service. I'm taking care of somebody who had a total knee replacement, and it's been an interesting day. That's all I'll say. So, but I told her I needed to be here from 4 to 6. That was the plan, and that's only 8 minutes away. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna mute, and I will be back. But thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
And Kathy, thank you for setting it up.
Sure,
Sure. I think it's great. So, and Chase, David's my son. Isn't that interesting?
That is. Small world.
He's a dietitian though. He's a food addiction dietitian. So,
Cool.
yeah, it's really cool. So it's kind of fun to have sons and mothers.
Yes, right. It's a dynamic duo.
All right. Be with you shortly.
Okay. So, Mom, right now, is all you can see of me is my screen?
I can see your screen, and then on the side are some little, almost like tiny, I don't know what you call them, little boxes along the right side where I can see you and me and Judy.
Okay. I see the same thing.
Okay.
It's crazy how widespread this training is.
Yeah, yeah. There's just so much need for this kind of training, you know, and this kind of resource for people.
Right. I'll be right back.
Okay. Hi, David.
Hey, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Good. I set this thing up to automatically record on the cloud, so it's already recording.
Oh, we wondered. So we've been chatting for a little while.
Yeah, I can edit it easily.
Okay. We probably came on at 20 minutes too.
Okay. That's fine. I can clip it out. It's
Okay.
easy. I know Benny has been uploading the files for Esther, so I might just WeTransfer him the file and let him do it.
Okay.
Because I think he's been doing that for her.
Have you heard back from anybody that you know is going to be attending today?
Erin, Benny, that's it.
Okay. I was telling Chase, he was asking, I said I would think maybe 5 or 6 because of all the time zone differences and schedules.
Yeah.
And David, this is Chase. Chase, can you hear us?
Yeah. Hi, David.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Welcome to our crazy Zoom parties.
Good to be here. It's spread out across a decent distance. It sounds like.
What's that? Oh yeah, definitely.
All over.
Absolutely. Where are you?
I'm in Utah.
Okay, all right.
Yep. And it's snowing right now.
Yeah.
It is.
What about you, David?
I'm in Boston, near Boston.
Oh, nice. I was just in Boston 2 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, and it's about 75 degrees outside.
Is it?
Yeah.
The first day I froze my butt off, and then it warmed up. It was really nice.
Yeah. Why were you in the Boston area?
I went and saw John Mayer in concert
Oh, cool.
at the Garden, and then we stayed a few extra days and saw the sights. It was so much fun, man.
Great. Yeah, Boston's a good town.
Great town. It's probably my most favorite city that I've visited.
Really? Yeah.
So much history, man. I couldn't believe. It's like I'm going to go to the 7-Eleven and get a coffee, and I'm going to walk past a 400-year-old cemetery with some of the founding fathers. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because I lived in Israel for a while, and I met a woman who was going to Sweden, and she's like, "It's so old." I was like, "That's not old." But yeah, we have a lot of history here. It's nice. Pittsburgh is another city worth seeing. I don't know if you've been there or not.
No, never have.
That's my favorite city in the States. So far, anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it rivals Boston for history, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the city kind of has a cool culture because it was destroyed by the mills and then they brought it back.
Destroyed by the...
The steel mills just kind of wrecked it, and then they've really revitalized it since then.
Yeah.
It's all the whole city like built on a hill. It's like kind of like, why did you even try to do that?
Chase, can you hear me? Do you have,
an airplane, but yes.
you can't hear me as well now?
You sound like a flight attendant, but I can hear you.
What does that mean? Flight attendant.
It sounds like you're in a cockpit with the headset on.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's not as clear, Kathy.
it's not. It was more clear before.
It was really clear before, but now it's not as clear. It's almost yeah, like you're in a tunnel.
This is better now.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Chase, I was just thinking you sound a little far away from the speaker. So maybe when you're speaking, get closer to it.
I can bring my computer closer. Is that any better?
I think so. Maybe I just need to turn my speaker up. Try it again.
Testing.
Yeah, that's okay. Can you guys hear him all right?
Try it again, Chase.
Testing.
Yeah, I think so. Well, try talking, just talking, because it's different than just saying one word over.
My name's Chase Wickersham. I'm going to talk about motivational interviewing.
I think it's okay. David will give you an opinion too. And I'm sure if you're ever in the area again, David and I live close to one another. He just happened to buy a house near us, which was amazing. I never, he's only with his wife not that long ago. And, you're always welcome, Kathy and Chase, if you ever want to be in the area. We're about an hour from Boston.
On that, yeah,
I might take you up on that because I already want to go back and see a bunch of stuff I didn't see.
yeah. We both love it. We've both been.
I'm sure David has a spare bedroom. I have, I have a couple of spare bedrooms. I mean, it's, I'm offering and my husband's not here, but I'm sure David would offer too. So, so it's about an hour drive to the city.
Okay.
And David works in the city, so.
Oh, nice.
He travels every day, so. But I think he tries to do it off hours. He tries to see, he goes in early and does stuff before work or whatever, or stays late. Sometimes he has a group, I think, late in the afternoon.
I hope he doesn't have to drive.
Well, he does. He does drive. It's not very good for him. It's not conducive where he works to take public transportation. It would be hard. But from Worcester, there's a commuter rail that takes you into the city, and then you can get on a subway or whatever.
Yeah, I thought their subways system was just really well thought out. It was just really easy to navigate and get around Boston.
Uh-huh. Now, where were you staying?
We stayed in Revere at a little Airbnb house.
Okay. My daughter goes to Revere Beach all the time. She and her husband live in a place called Melrose.
Okay.
Apartment, which is north of the city. And they in fact, he proposed to her on the beach.
Oh, that's awesome.
David, I invited Chase to your home to.
Oh yeah, come on, come down, over, up, wherever it is.
I'm already regretting that I haven't seen so many things while I was there. I mean, there's just so much to see. You can't see it all in one trip.
Definitely.
It is a great city. It really is. I went to school in Boston, so.
And people just seem legitimately nice, helpful, and happy. And the city's clean and beautiful.
Wow, most people complain that people are fast-paced here and aren't nice, and so that's good to hear.
No, people were just really friendly, and I just kind of fell in love.
Well, like I said, come back. Bring your mother with you.
Right? It's a date.
All right. Have you ever been, Kathy?
I've been a couple of times. It's beautiful city. Love it.
Oh, that's right. Because you were in Worcester. You came to the first food addiction.
I came to that, and then we traveled as a family a couple of times, or with our younger kids a couple of times. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, that's right. You said that. So you actually were in Worcester. David and I live like 10 minutes from UMass, where the seminar was. It's not.
You call it more rural area, it felt like, than the city.
Well, it is. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, we get deer in our backyard and raccoon and coyotes and
Wow.
in the city. I mean, we live in a city. Is it the second largest city in the state, David? Worcester?
New England.
In New England, Worcester? Really?
Yeah, it's bigger than Providence.
Wow. Surprised. Very surprised.
Providence doesn't take up a lot of space.
No. People say that's a lovely city to
That's good too.
to go to. You went to school there, so you should know.
Yeah, well, I just spent my whole time cooking and eating bread.
Eating bread.
10 hours and 4 days while I was in Boston.
I don't know what happened to you, but you sound like a robot now. What happened to you?
Do you want it?
Yeah. What do you think? Hi, Lior.
Hi.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We're not there yet, thank God. We're not ready.
Do I still sound like a robot?
Oh, much better.
Oh, it sounds fine.
Okay.
Well, it's 5 after, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I know everyone here, so I'll just introduce Chase. He is a licensed, soon to be licensed, I think, aren't you? Clinical social worker next month?
I'm a CSW right now, and next month I'll be an LCSW.
Okay, yeah. And he has some expertise in chemical dependency treatment and some expertise in motivational interviewing and some expertise in presenting those topics too. So I thought he'd be a great resource for us to learn as we begin to develop our food addiction counseling skills. And I'm just going to turn the rest of the 2-hour period over to Chase, and we'll just go from there. So, hi, Chase.
So I met Judy, David, and then I can see Lee Orr.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, good to meet you. So yeah, I guess just a little more context for you guys, for me. You know, I'm really interested in, you know, motivational interviewing, addiction, and how to treat it, because I'm in recovery myself from drugs and alcohol, and you know, it just beat me up a lot. And you know, once I got in recovery, I just got really interested about how to treat it. And you know, Bill, I always mix up the two, Rolnick and Miller, who created motivational interviewing, did a lot of research with my clinical director at Compass Counseling, Dr. Brad Lundahl. So there's the motivational interviewing network of trainers, where you're Mint certified. Dr. Lundahl is Mint certified, and eventually I'd like to get Mint certified, but I've been able to be mentored by, you know, just some really talented people. So I'm really grateful for that professionally and personally. You know, it makes me a better therapist and helps kind of sustain my own recovery as I learn more of these skills that we'll go over. So I guess just to kind of start, the first thing, and I'll stop sharing so you guys can see me. The first thing I wanted to talk about is just my conceptualization of addiction as a disease. You know, I remember when I first got to treatment, you know, in 2009, when I got sober, they said, you know, you used to be a cucumber and now you're a pickle. And that's basically the understanding that I had of addiction as a disease. And then, you know, I started to learn, well, you have tolerance, withdrawal, persistent use despite negative consequences, use upon awakening, you know, kind of the DSM criteria that makes something a disease. And that started to make more sense. And, you know, when somebody's actively using, they've, you know, lost their ability to choose, right? Or when they're actively, compulsively eating, and they've never had any kind of abstinence, they've lost some ability to choose. And I struggled with why that was, right? Like, what is it that happened that, you know, we've lost our ability to choose at some point? And one of my other clinical directors, Dr. Corey Rich and Dr. Kevin McCauley, who's an MD, founded the Institute for Addiction Study, and they have 2 DVDs that are shown. And I just met with them actually a couple weeks ago, and I said, how many treatment centers do you think these materials are shown in? And they said probably most of them for chemical dependency. And I'll send you guys the links, or I'll send the links to Kathy so that she can send them to you guys. But they really changed my conceptualization of addiction, not only as a disease, but a stress response disease. So if we define disease as a defect in an organ, diabetes is a defect in the pancreas's ability to produce insulin, right? And addiction, they would argue, is a defect in, if this is your spinal cord and this is your midbrain, my thumb, and then you have your prefrontal cortex right here. Addiction, according to the Institute for Addiction Study, is a stress response of the midbrain overpowering the prefrontal cortex's ability to choose. And the midbrain can be overstimulated in a variety of ways. There can be, emotional stress. There can be financial stress. There can be physical health stress. There can be legal stress, spiritual distress. And if you take, a water bottle, as I mentioned those, emotional, mental, physical, social, spiritual, legal, the closer we get to the top of this bottle is a relapse, or is what is crossing the threshold into addiction. And it's characterized, as I mentioned, by the midbrain being overwhelmed with stress, and then the midbrain tagging certain behaviors such as compulsive eating, chemicals, gambling, sex, as being really good at relieving that stress temporarily. And there's a saying that neurons that fire together wire together. So as somebody experiences stress in a variety of ways, and the midbrain is also pre-conscious. So just like a reflex, if you move out of the way of a car that almost hits you, or you catch something really quickly as it's falling, you don't think about it, you just did it. Oftentimes a relapse can happen pre-consciously. You can find yourself in a relapse and wonder, how did I get there? And it's an inability to perceive and manage stress, because when the midbrain is active, the prefrontal cortex, which knows not to continue to use drugs or food or sex or gambling, which knows, hey, I should hold open doors for people, I should be polite, brain surgery, rocket science, all the spirituality, it all lives in the prefrontal cortex. That goes dark as the midbrain becomes activated, and vice versa. As the midbrain rests, the prefrontal cortex comes back online, and people are able to regain the choice that they lost as they cross that threshold into addiction, or after, let's say, years of abstinence. If you haven't used a substance in years, what precedes somebody picking back up? And the Institute for Addiction Study and where they've spent their time in the research is that stress response model of the midbrain overpowering the prefrontal cortex's ability to choose. So that's just kind of the landscape that I operate from as a therapist. I worked in a treatment center full-time for 2 years, and I now work at a private practice. That's the model that I operate from. And then I'm going to talk about how to use motivational interviewing to address addiction as a stress response disease, along with mind-body bridging, which is a modality that's third wave CBT that I use quite often to help address this people's inability to cope and become overwhelmed with stress and eventually relapse. So that was a lot as an introduction. Any questions thus far, or did I lose anybody?
Chase, I just clarify that what third wave CBT is, just briefly.
Yeah, so CBT has been around for a while, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, and third wave meaning introducing mindfulness in tandem with CBT. So rather than just, let's say, disputing a negative cognition with evidence to the contrary, you might just notice a negative cognition to help, distance yourself from that negative cognition rather than arguing with the negative cognition. So that's essentially the biggest difference is mindfulness with mind-body bridging, because it has a lot of overlap with CBT, but it has some very distinct differences. Any other questions thus far or clarification? Okay, so I guess I'll just jump right into motivational interviewing. And this is something that I have trained in a variety of settings. You know, I've trained the nursing programs. I've trained clinicians in chemical dependency. I'm going to be training educational, what are they called? Like school counselors. Motivational interviewing is used in all kinds of contexts where you're trying to engage people in positive change behavior, right? So you guys have talked about the stages of change with Prochaska. So pre-contemplation to contemplation. Have you guys talked about that a lot or a little?
A little.
Little.
Okay. So MI, I like to think about as kind of the glue in between other interventions that are or MI is the mortar in between the other bricks of other interventions. So once you start getting somebody going through the stages of pre-contemplation to contemplation to ambivalence to preparation, right? That motivational interviewing is moving people through those stages, and things like CBT or third wave CBT techniques are the actual interventions that you use to address anxiety, depression, unresolved trauma that are contributing to the stress response nature of addiction. So that being said, we'll just jump right into MI, as I referred to it, so I don't have to say motivational interviewing over and over. Let's see here. So the objectives for today's training, we want to understand that MI has application in a variety of settings, and what are the ingredients to behavioral change. We're going to talk about specific skills within MI and kind of role play those skills so that we're assessing and promoting clients' motivation to change, and also skills to assess and promote clients' confidence to change. They may be really motivated, but they may have no idea about how to change, right? So, David being a nutritionist, that's where, confidence can be huge, where you have an intervention of educating people about, food and what food is addictive versus what food is less addictive, and its relation to change. And lastly, skills to assess and prevent or respond clients' resistance to change. So, often as people are trying to change, it's scary. People have been using food for decades to cope. And if you're in a setting where you're trying to change that behavior, it can be terrifying because people don't have another way of dealing with, the uncomfortable emotions or unresolved trauma, or, all those stressors that I talked about with the water bottle that are contributing to their continuing to use food despite negative consequences. So, questions for you guys so far. What do you guys know about MI?
So I guess I can speak to that from what we've been exposed to in our counseling workbook and groups. And it's a few pages in a chapter, 5 or 6 pages, but there hasn't been any role playing or anything like that, or even we haven't had any discussion about how to apply it or anything like that, really. It's just a few pages that we've read, as far as I know from what I've seen.
Okay. So
I've done some role-playing related stuff, but in a different context.
you've done some role playing with MI, but in a different.
Yeah, I did a 3-day motivational interviewing training through I think it's the Maine Institute of something, substance abuse or something like that.
Okay.
I did a day seminar with substance abuse counselors or advocates. I don't know exactly what they're called. Maybe David knows.
Recovery coaches.
Recovery coaches in Massachusetts. They provided. In fact, today and yesterday they had a 2-day follow-up training from that, but I couldn't attend. So it was a very the first part of a 3-part series. It was very good, and we did a little bit of role playing at the end, very little. I mean, we had to either be an MI person being reflective or telling the person what to do. I couldn't do it. I can't tell somebody what to do. I'm more reflective. I'm too nice. I'm nice, So anyway,
I think that's a lot better place to start, being supportive and reflective rather than bossy. You'll have a lot less resistance with that approach, right?
People were bossy. When the role player, she was great. I wanted to run the other way. I mean, I really did. It was I was there to buy a mattress,
Right.
And she came to me. I had to do it. She came to me actually for a diet. It was pretty funny that it happened because I was the only food addict there. That proclaimed themselves to be a food addict. So that was pretty funny that I got that one. So I had to play both, like being an MI person or being bossy, and I wasn't very good at it. So I'm too kind.
One of the coolest things that we did in our training was we had 3 chairs, one chair and 2 people standing behind, and the person in the chair told us something they were trying to do, and the other 2 people were trying to convince them to do one thing versus the other at the same time. So to sit in the chair and to hear the ambivalence fight battle was so you want to rip your hair out.
Right.
That was one of my I think the best experiences I had during that training. I kind of was able to really relate with the resistance to change and the ambivalence and pushiness.
Right. Which historically, in chemical dependency treatment, that was the model, right? We've got to challenge these drug addict, alcoholic ego, and we've got to break their ego in order for them to change. And MI is the polar opposite. So yeah, those 3 chairs, that sounds like a great experiential activity to learn MI, David.
Also, once upon a time, you did not make a treatment plan individualized for your client. You fit your client into the treatment program, and they had to do. I mean, when I was working in Florida, it was like they were just starting to work with this. Oh, you have to have individualized treatment plans, and you have to look at the person in front of you. So,
Right. Yeah, MI is very much individualized rather than just one size fits all treatment approach. Amen. Any other responses to what you guys know about MI?
I was doing an online course with the Florida Certification Board, the Addictions Florida Certification Board, but I honestly don't remember much about it. So I feel I know nothing. I know the different stages. That's about all I remember. So.
Okay.
Chase, it's Mary. I'm a dietitian, but did a smoking cessation counselor certification, a 5-day one here in Toronto. And it was a large audience of about 1,000. So it was mostly demonstrated to us rather than doing examples. However, it was, I remember the acronym WAR, and I just remember W is you want to see how important it is to someone, whether they're able to do it and whether they're ready right now to make change. And then about asking questions to find out where they're at importance, then ability, then readiness right now, and having them talk through their ambivalence. So asking questions so that they do sort of what David said, the devil and the angel, and keep asking them questions about, how come you rated yourself a 3 out of 10 on how important it is to you rather than a 1 out of 10, and try to build them and see how far you can get them. So that's a bit of what I learned, or I remember what I learned.
Yeah, scaling questions is something that we'll talk about, and how to use that for mining change talk versus sustained talk. And Mary, you said OARS, OARS. Was that the acronym?
WAR, and I don't know why. I remember it as WAR, but I don't remember what W was. I just remember the question is, how important is it? Oh, willingness. That was willingness. So W was willingness, but the question is, how important is it for you to change?
Okay.
And then A was the ability to, so for a nutrition thing, the ability, if you need to make homemade meals, do you know how to cook? Do you know how to grocery shop? The ability.
Yes.
And then readiness right now was the third. So willingness, ability, readiness right now. And I just remember WAR when I'm thinking about motivational interviewing for whatever reason.
Yeah, there's about 38 million acronyms in the MI book. So I forget, I haven't heard WAR before, but that you and I are speaking the same language.
Okay, good.
And I guess just the last question, aside from learning how to apply MI in treating food addiction, generally, are there other specifics that you guys hope to learn about MI that I should know about so that I can speak to it?
Just like what to do when we hear change talk. I'm sure you're going to cover that, but just like, because I hear it a lot, and sometimes just like how to utilize that moment the best.
So how to get greedy with change talk. That's literally one of the titles of my slides. Anything else? Alrighty. So why am I? Evidence supports its effectiveness. Effect sizes range from small to moderate range. Research suggests about a 10 to 15% advantage from incorporating MI. And I'll share these slides with you guys, so feel free not to have to furiously write what you're seeing. I'm not paranoid about people having my material. And it's rather easy to incorporate into practice, especially Judy, you saying that you come from more of a kind and supporting stance rather than a bossy stance. It's very easy to incorporate when you have that approach. So the growth of MI research has exploded. Bill Miller originally developed it, working with alcoholics, and he just kind of developed it spontaneously. The other therapists at the treatment center he was working on were asking him, hey, Dr. Miller, what are you doing to get these combative, egomaniac alcoholics to talk to you? Because we're just ready to throw our hands up because they're so resistant to treatment. You're doing something different. And he wasn't sure what he was doing until he started to, videotape himself and kind of, or record himself and start to put together basically a theory of motivational interviewing. And since then, to go from 6, in 1980 and 1989 studies to almost 2,000 is incredible. So there's something really potent about MI in a variety of settings that we'll talk about. So what is MI? It's as you guys can see, a guiding style of conversation that helps clients focus on reasons for performance in such a manner that motivation to change is likely to increase. And the philosophy is, humanistic. It's not possessive. And, Bill Miller describes himself as pathologically optimistic. That no matter how bad somebody is struggling, no matter how many times they've relapsed, no matter how unlikely it seems for a client to change their behavior, that recovery is possible. And I really like that pathologically optimistic stance that he takes, because I think we as therapists don't give ourselves enough credit, and we don't give the client enough credit in how resilient we are, and how many strengths we have. I think that's going to really lower the resistance that you guys have as you encounter people trying to lose weight and get out of addiction, or get into recovery with an optimistic philosophy. So MI is used all over the place. Anywhere from, you guys can see prevention of HIV to cardiovascular disease to clean water practices to, unprotected sex, smoking. It's very diverse, but you guys can see in the third bullet that it's not a panacea. It's not, a magic bullet for everything. And that, the effect size has varied widely dependent upon the setting. So I guess I'm curious if you guys, each of you could just briefly mention in what settings you guys plan to use MI, with what population. Could some of you just speak to that?
Yeah, I use MI one-on-one with people in like nutrition counseling and food addiction related counseling, also in groups for food addiction counseling, and even I use aspects of it even in educational like support groups,
Okay.
kind of like psycho ed related stuff, but for food.
Jason, I would like to see if it's possible to somehow tie together with somatic experience in Hakomi, which are body mind techniques that I use. Because somehow I think that bringing the body in, like you were saying with the mindfulness, can be very helpful, but I'm not sure that I would know how to integrate it.
So you're not sure about how to integrate mindfulness with MI, is that right?
So what I'm saying is I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, and I am also doing my practicum in Hakomi now, which are both body-mind techniques, and we use mindfulness. And I'm saying I would like to find a way of integrating MI with these other techniques, because I think it gives a much more whole picture and way of working with the different people.
Right. So how to integrate MI with the techniques that you're already using? Okay.
I can't make Chase out right now. I don't know what's wrong.
You can't hear him?
No, not well.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Sorry, you can't get comfortable.
Oh, it's okay.
It makes a big difference. You were like breaking up and far away before.
Hey, and Chase, if you need to take breaks every little while to get up and walk around for a minute, that's great. Don't, I know you have some back pain right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. I'm okay for right now.
I do that too, so breaks are good. I have a pillow behind me, so I get it.
Okay.
I get it.
And then I just wanted to add to your question that for me specifically, thinking about being a food addiction counselor, there's kind of two main scenarios that pop into my mind, and that is a new client coming in who's not been exposed to the idea of the food's addictive. And I think I wrote you a couple notes about that I could imagine somebody saying, I just love food. I just love food. And then another person saying maybe, I'm not a food addict. And by the way, what's a food addict? That kind of stuff. And then the later stage people that have been through treatment, maybe, and they chronically relapse and they're more hopeless and scared. Those two scenarios really pop in my head.
Also, in relationship to what Kathy said, the person who I just know for myself, it took me years to say I was a food addict. I could say I was a compulsive eater, but to add the word addiction onto food, I remember the first time I saw it was when one of my children was tested, and the psychologist wrote and said that, the mother, self-professed that she was a food addict. And it was like, whoa, really hard to handle. So I think a lot of people come into, looking for a diet or and they're clueless that it could possibly be an addiction.
Okay.
I think it's funny because in my line of work, it's or maybe it's just that things are changing, but I think people are a lot more open to the idea. I don't know. Maybe it's my subliminal messaging. I don't know.
They're a lot more open to food
Well, they're like,
addiction.
well, when I ask people if they think food is, what foods are addicting, they give me a list of food. They're not like, oh, food's not addicting. Most of the time. I mean, yeah, you have the, your chronic relapsers with type 2 diabetes and missing toes, and they're like, no, I'm fine. But, no, I don't know. Maybe it's just it's been in the news a lot. I don't know. I think that people are becoming more receptive now.
I think
I think
because of the
part
eating
of
disorder.
the problem is the denial of the disease of addiction, and so many people don't have a problem around food. I mean, myself included many years ago. But I see that all the time. Like people coming to the room and, it's like they're there because of, but not really because they have the locus of control is not internal, and the denial is just part of the disease. So I think that's part of the issue.
Amen. Okay. Well, thanks for
Sorry.
That's what happens when computers are linked to phones, right? They make noises. It's okay. So thanks for giving me a better idea of how you guys plan to use MI, because like I said, that'll help as we practice it. And I'm going to try and keep a careful watch on time, because this originally is a multiple day training, and I'm going to shave off some things. So if I skip through some slides, again, I'll share them with you. So first objective is we want to understand the nature of performance. So the formula of knowing how to change equal change, true or false?
False.
False.
So that's pretty straightforward. What I would add to this formula, getting closer to reality, is knowing how to change multiplied by being motivated is more likely to result in some change behavior happening. And to complete the formula, if we increase their confidence along with their motivation, along with knowing what to do while managing their resistance, their denial, that is a pretty comprehensive formula for examining or assessing whether or not somebody performs and moves through the stages of change into actively recovering. I really like this formula as a way to conceptualize working with clients. So if we were to talk about the ingredients to performance, what factors promote performance and what factors limit performance? What pops up in your mind as I ask that question?
Like self-efficacy.
Okay. Amen.
Negative self-talk is what blocks it, limits, or a whole negative belief system.
Okay. Yeah. Negative beliefs, limiting beliefs.
Like previous attempts that have failed.
Yeah.
Or worked.
Okay.
One of the programs uses honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Those are ingredients.
Amen.
I wanted to mention something I just read yesterday about some research they were doing on addiction in rats. And when the rats were, it was food addiction, but they put them on food, and then they had a control group that wasn't on food. And they gave rats a stress test, which is swimming in water. And the rats that were on food tended to just float and not try to swim and get out of the water, which is stressful for rats. And so they equated that to learned helplessness. They called it learned helplessness. So this idea that when you're in the food, actually the chemical changes causes a form of learned helplessness. I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Great example of a barrier. Great example. I haven't heard of that research either. That I would love to see that. So yeah, there's.
scary.
That is scary, right? So there's lots of answers to both of these questions. And, things that support it, we've already discussed: knowledge, skill, confidence, motivation, having a vision, a plan, resources. You mentioned that in war, Mary. And then, the things that inhibit performance, or, the ignorance, saying, I'm not a food addict. What's a food addict? Right? I think, like Kathy, you mentioned, and the denial of a problem. I heard somebody say denial, comfort with the status quo. They've lived and eaten like this for decades at times, right? And it's comfortable. It's what they know. And lack of resources, low motivation. So the essence of motivational interviewing, this is a biggie, is why before how. So if we jump right into, all right, I have all these strategies for how to change, and let's just start talking about clean eating. But we haven't talked about if clean eating is important to them, and why it's important to them, and what about clean eating is important to them. We're going to encounter resistance pretty quickly. So it's kind of like making sure that we're climbing up the right tree. We're selecting the right tree before we start climbing up that tree. And the how is strategies, plans, education about nutrition, variety of things. And the kind of the continuum of directedness that you guys can see here is a balance between being too directional and too passive. We mentioned earlier that the kind of the philosophy of addiction treatment was to confront people's egos and kill their ego in order to establish change. And there may be other therapists or other change people that are trying to assist with change behavior that are scared when they see resistance and don't want to engage the client, because they're saying, I'm not a food addict, and I don't need help, and I don't want help. And it's easy to just kind of not know what to do sometimes when people are so adamant that they don't need help, or they're in denial. So we want to find a balance between those two areas. So you're kind of a guide. You're partnering with them. You're on the same team. You're sharing insights about the problem and about the solution, rather than I'm the therapist and you are the client. It's more of a partnership. So the three lands of change that we'll talk about in Change Talk is the what to change, the why to change, and the how to change. And again, we're starting with why, because maybe somebody comes into treatment and they're really focused on, for example, depression. That maybe they in their mind, depression is a bigger problem than food. And you talk about that first, because that's what's most distressing to them. And when they feel like you're not telling them what to do, being a bossy counselor from hell, they're going to be more receptive to talking about changing food if you start with talking about changing depression. And it's kind of, sometimes I almost feel like a I don't know, an addict whisperer, like a horse whisperer. If I start with why land first, if I have some concerns as their therapist, those concerns naturally come out of them as I engage them with their own whys and their own priorities, rather than me trying to fix what I think is the biggest problem first. So objective number 2 is understanding and encouraging clients' motivation to perform. And that's where we get into Prochaska's stages of change. And, you know, we'll meet people at a variety of stages. You know, Kathy mentioned that you may have somebody that's been in the maintenance phase for years, right? They've had a really good recovery program, and they've now relapsed, and they're really, you know, disillusioned and scared that they're going to go back to their old way of relating with food. And you might meet somebody in pre-contemplation that has no idea that they have a problem. It's not even on their radar. And then anywhere in between. And you guys have already talked about this, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but MI is that red line. It's the mortar in between the other modalities that you guys will employ of education or therapy or CBT or peer support or pharmacological intervention or detox or whatever strategies you're using. MI is just facilitating in between. So a foundational MI skill that we'll start off with, just a concrete skill, is elicit, provide, elicit. So, you know, we want to get information from the client about goals, plans. You know, we already talked about the barriers and solutions, because maybe they're already really knowledgeable about the subject, right? We don't know what we don't know. And if I just treat every client the same way, and I kind of have a cookie cutter approach to treatment, I may be missing out on a lot of resources and strengths that the client has. Or if I assume that they already know a lot of things about how to recover, I could just be upping their resistance because they don't have any ideas about how to recover because they've never done it before, right? And after we elicit that information from the client about those areas, we want to provide information such as, you know, psychoeducation about nutrition, you know, therapy, peer support, 12 steps, whatever seems most helpful for you as the change agent. And then ending again with eliciting. If you provide an idea to them, we want to elicit where they're at with that idea, you know, and assessing how good of a fit are those ideas, which one is the best. So if I were to do an example of that, you know, it may be, you know, Kathy, if I can just use you as a volunteer, can you tell me a little bit about what you'd like to accomplish in treatment? What brings you to treatment?
Are we role playing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't say that.
Well, you know, I've been trying to lose weight for a lot of years. I've read a lot of books and done a lot of things, and I just feel like there's nobody there that knows how to help me, or either I can't seem to understand the programs that are out there. They're supposed to help me lose weight.
So you spent years, and you spent years in recovery. You said you've read books, you've been in therapy, you've had, you know, periods of success and failure, and right now you're not sure which direction, or you're not sure. Can you kind of clarify that for me, Kathy?
Well, I haven't been to many 12-step groups. I tried a couple and I didn't like them.
Okay.
OA meetings, but I've read lots and lots of books, and I've been to Weight Watchers, and I've been to several doctors, and I've been to therapists to work on my emotional issues, but nothing ever seems to really change. I feel like I'm a hamster in a wheel.
So if you were, and I feel you, you know, with being a hamster in a wheel. I know what that feels like, and that's not a fun place to be. That's a very painful place to be. Out of those few different things that you mentioned, you've been to Weight Watchers, you've been to therapists, you've read a lot of books. What in your mind is the most important thing that you'd like to start with to accomplish in therapy, if you were to prioritize that?
I guess I just don't understand why I can't stay with it, because I can do it for a little while. And I do feel better when I start losing weight at first. I'm thinking, oh, I found the solution. And then I just can't seem to stay with it more than like a few weeks.
Okay. So something happens in a few weeks' time where your success just starts to, the wheels start to come apart, and you're not sure where to go after a few weeks of being abstinent. Is that right?
I think really I just want those foods again. And then once I start eating those foods, it's like all or nothing.
Okay.
I don't know how to
Okay.
moderately eat some of those foods.
Okay. So the cravings are overwhelming 3 weeks into being abstinent, and you're just not quite sure how to deal with those cravings on an emotional level a few weeks into it. Is that right?
Well, I guess I never thought of them as cravings. I just think I keep thinking about them.
Okay. So they just dominate a lot of your thinking.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get food off of your mind. Bad, or I guess addictive food off of your mind after a few weeks of being abstinent.
Yeah, the things I like to eat that I shouldn't.
Kathy, would you be open to me providing a few different options for people who have struggled after a few weeks of abstinence, who have been in a really similar situation to you?
Yes, absolutely.
So, you know, and then I would go into, you know, either psychoeducation about, you know, the stages of a relapse, right? So there's an emotional relapse, a mental relapse, you know, a social relapse before an actual chemical or food relapse. That relapse is a process rather than an event, excuse me. For example, right, you could go any number of ways right here with what you decide you want to provide the client. And let's say I went through, you know, better understanding that those thoughts, or a behavior chain analysis from DBT, right? Kathy, let's put the target behavior of abstinence or eating X food after 3 weeks in a behavior chain. And then we would go back to, you know, your vulnerabilities, your thought, emotion, urge, target behavior, and then solutions. So that may be something that I provide to the client that's a DBT skill that's not even MI at all. And then I would go to elicit. Kathy, how do you think we could, now that we've done this behavior chain analysis, how do you see solutions from your thoughts, emotions, and urges that lead up to the eating after 3 weeks? Where do you see that you're most vulnerable that we need to start addressing?
And this is after we've discussed it, or you've discussed what I've told you is my problem?
Yeah, we did a behavior chain analysis and we talked about where your vulnerabilities are, where your thought, emotion, urges are, and then we do a solution, right?
Yeah.
For those of you who aren't familiar with behavior chain analysis, I'll send you the handout that I use for that.
And
But
then,
let's say
then what's your question to me again in the role play?
in the role play, it would be, you know, Kathy, if we look at where you're vulnerable in this behavior chain, where do you see yourself being most vulnerable to the relapse? And you might say, you know, well, I've recently had a lot of financial distress. I've recently had a lot of interpersonal distress in my marriage. My husband threatened to leave me, right? And we can identify that you have some vulnerabilities in this behavior chain that we then address in the solution. And again, this is a DBT skill, and that's one of the bricks of an intervention. But MI is the mortar that precedes that brick, that precedes laying that brick. And after we discuss that behavior chain, I'd say, now, Kathy, are we going the right direction? Do you feel like we're going the right direction using this behavior chain?
So Chase, you're kind of describing, I think, what we do in the process of in the process of treatment, rather than engaging people in the conversations we might need to even get them into treatment.
Sure.
I mean,
sure. Yeah.
More like an intervention to help them move forward in like designing goals and objectives for treatment.
Yeah, that example would probably be later on once they're, you know, they've been to therapy a few times and they've learned some skills. But the gist of it is, I want to ask you about what's important for you, why land, right? And then I want to provide something that's helpful. And then I want to elicit whether or not what I provided was helpful or not. And if it wasn't helpful, we need to start over.
Chase, could I intervene with a question here?
Yeah.
That be okay? One of the first questions for a person who says the words cravings, I want to elicit whether it's a physiological craving or an emotional craving. So that if it's a physiological craving, that they're hungry for those substances physiologically, to assess whether they have cleared away the sugar, grain products, those that will elicit cravings, before we go any further, because they are in the addiction still. So it's just like with an alcoholic, they're still, have substance in their bodies. So they have to be cleaner before we even get to be able to deal with the addict.
Yeah, great point. I mean, we want to make sure that we're asking the right questions for where the client's at, right? The saying that we want to meet the client where they're at. So that's a great point, Cynthia. And Kathy, you mentioned, that role play that we just did would be maybe something that we'd be talking about later on in treatment. But this is a really simple skill that helps you as a change agent make sure that you're just on the same page as you engage the client in change behavior or in therapy or as a nutritionist or whatever domain you're in, which is a variety. This group is a variety of areas for food addiction, which is kind of cool. And I'm learning as I talk to you guys, because my focus is chemicals. So as I go through this, feel free to, like you just did, Cynthia, to jump in and say, this is what I would assess as I look at this model. Quick.
Okay,
Shay,
I have a question.
Yeah.
You use the words abstinence and cravings for the person who you don't really know if they know what that terminology is. Did you do that on purpose to introduce those particular words, or because many people who have not been in a 12-step program, from my experience at any rate, may not know what abstinence is as we view it as abstinence. You know, they may think of it as diet or food plan or something like that. So I was just interested to know.
No, I wouldn't use words that the client doesn't understand. I would make sure that I'm speaking a language that they know, and I might provide what a craving is before I use that word, right? I would talk about craving as a strategy for understanding addiction before I'm using that as part of our vocabulary together. And the same thing with abstinence. I would make sure that we're on the same page about what abstinence means versus a diet before that's part of a vocabulary. Good question.
Chase, when you talk about, you are talking about chemical. I mean, see, I don't think food's any different than the chemical, whether it's an alcohol, whether it's a drug. It does exactly, I mean, at least that's why we're here, because we
Yeah.
think it does exactly the same thing, that it's no different, that, heroin to somebody, my heroin is sugar, flour, grain, at this point in my life, sugar, flour, grain, starches, fats, and more. I mean, I've progressed. I mean, I'm a late stage food addict. So when you say, just so you're aware, when you talk chemical, I mean, I think food in place, that's my chemical. I mean, it's no different, which is why I have to abstain from all of those items. And because I'm so late stage, I have to weigh and measure everything that goes into my body. And I mean, because when I eat, no matter, I'm not hungry, okay? When I go to eat, usually, like I can go 4, 6, 8, 10 hours, just so you understand this. But the minute I put something in my mouth, I have to weigh and measure because there's no stopping point for me. And when I'm done eating, I always want more. I can tell you, always want more. And, but if I wait, if I do not take that more because I know I've had enough because that scale tells me I've eaten enough, okay, then I'm okay. I can go another 6, 12 hours if I really had to. I don't recommend that. 4 to 6 is what's recommended. So I just wanted to, because this is a learning experience for you too. This is the real deal. It's my chemical, period. It's no different.
Thanks for that clarification, Judy. That helps me understand what it's like for you. And I can relate to, when I'm eating, I'm not hungry. Well, we know that I can say the same thing. When I'm drinking, I'm not thirsty. Right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think about, tell Judy, I'm going to take you to a buffet where you can eat whatever you want to eat. I bet you my brain lights up just like an alcoholic who's drinking. I bet you any money. Just the thought makes me go crazy.
I believe you.
So.
Yeah. Well,
Chase.
Yeah.
Mary, it's something I'm observing is that your summarization repeats the role modeling words in some instances, and in some instances takes it a bit further. I'm saying I like the way you do it. You're validating people without being patronizing, and you sound very sincere, and you're not just repeating people's words. You're stretching it a bit further in your summarization. And I find that skill, imagining myself doing it, I think I find that a bit difficult of what that line is, to know when you're validating someone who needs validation before jumping in with providing something, and not judging. So the way you do it, you're not judging what they've disclosed to you, but you're validating it without saying, oh, I know exactly how that feels, but you're saying, what's the trick? That's what I'm asking. What's the trick?
I think, the trick is genuine. For me, I'm genuinely curious about what it's like to be in that person's skin. What the thoughts are like, what the feelings are like, what the urges or cravings are like, what the suffering is like, and to just try and do my best to have accurate empathy, Carl Rogers type stuff, and to do my own self-care, right, so that I can be in a space to really hear people, and feelings are to be understood, not judged. A relapse is to be understood, not judged. So A, thanks, Mary, and B, that's my answer.
I speak to addicts all the time. If you come from a place of humble non-judgment, you'd be surprised what they'll disclose to you. They're so used to stigma that if you can have no stigma and just be empathetic, but honestly, feel, it's a compassion thing. But if you have that, it's amazing what kind of conversations you can have with people, even if you're just meeting them.
Amen. And even if you're not 100% familiar with all of these foundational skills, that we'll go over some of them. Just like David, you said, if you come from a place of empathy, there's that saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. There's a handout that I'll share with you guys that's an MI handout that's at the very top of it. So I agree with you guys 100%. And I drank a lot of water and a lot of coffee. Should we take a 10-minute break?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll see you guys in 10 minutes.
Where's Liza? Liza! Liza! Come here! Liza!
David, did you still want it to be recording?
It's recording on the cloud.
Oh,
So if people go on YouTube, they can just skim through the empty part. I set it up to record automatically.
okay. Whatever you say.
I can always try to clean it up a little.
David, did you send me the email before this about where to come for the Zoom meeting?
I asked Esther to forward it.
Esther? Oh,
Esther sent it to all of us, Cindy.
well, I wasn't looking for Esther. I didn't see it on Esther. I'm going to go out and see if I can find it because it doesn't come up. I don't know why.
I'll tell you where I got it.
Esther isn't the finest with technology, so it's possible she missed your name.
How do I, hit escape. I was gonna say, how do I get out of here and get to my email?
My technological abilities are getting me down. I'm ready to quit functioning in the world because of the technology.
She sent it 2 days ago on April 26th to all of us. And it said, please share with class was the title, just so you know, because I had to look for it myself.
Okay. No, I was looking for David's name. That's probably why.
That would be frustrating because guess what? It wasn't his name.
And I do recall hearing that it was going to possibly go to her, so I do recall. Chase, thank you so much for doing this. And I'm sorry I was late. I was lost in the technology.
Oh, you're okay. I do the same. I use Zoom at my work, and I swear it takes 10 minutes to set up almost every time I use it.
It's the invitations that I can't find. They don't come in the places that I look.
Well, you know what? Sherry's asking me now. I just got this email. It's too bad. 11 hours ago, I just saw it because I haven't had email access. And
Most people have it. They just like,
she's looking for it also.
Yeah.
I'll email it. Well, like, why not text us or something?
I know. Well, you know.
I could send it to her.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'll let you do it.
I guess I should have just asked her for all the emails.
Yeah.
If-
Next time.
If it's like me, it's just like, oh no, not again. Maybe I just will watch the show later. I don't want to. Yeah, so.
How strict?
David, right at the beginning, Esther sent us a list with all the emails and also on
You're breaking up. I
the
can understand you.
I think she's saying, David, that Esther sending all the emails.
about this, about this lecture. They're all the emails, so you could just copy them from there.
Yeah, I guess hindsight's 20/20 though.
Trying to end right at 4 or right at the 2-hour mark. Do I have any flexibility?
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
If I go a little over?
It's fine with me.
Okay.
You know, and plus if somebody can't stay, Chase, then they can look at it on YouTube, you know? But it's great. It's really helpful. So
Hey, Chase. You know, I think it was Mary was asking you a question before the break about the reflections. You know, I just finished reading that original text, and there was an excerpt in there about reflection that really stood out for me more than anything else in the book. And I was wondering if you want me to take a minute and read a little bit of an example of reflections, if that would be helpful, or you have other things you'd rather do.
Please. There's 97 slides. I won't get through all of them. If there's something you found helpful, please talk about it, and then I'll talk about reflections too.
Okay, it's just such a critical skill, and this example just seemed to just grab my attention. So they're talking about reflection is taking it, what they said, and just kind of taking it a step further. You know, putting up maybe a little bit of meaning in it, maybe that they're not quite saying, but you can attribute it to it, especially in the context of a relationship. You can kind of understand what they might be saying. So the example here is, I'll just read it. The interviewer says, "How have you been feeling lately since your surgery?" Client: "It was quite an ordeal. I can tell you I'm lucky to be here." Interviewer: "You could easily have died." So how you see how it's taking it a step further? I'm lucky to be here. Yes, you could have easily died. Client: "They said there was 90% blockage, and at my age, that kind of surgery is major, but I made it through." Interviewer: "And you're glad?" Client: "Yes, I have plenty to live for." Interviewer: "I know your family is important to you." Client: "I love seeing the grandkids, 2 boys, 2 girls, you know, right here in town. I like doing things with them." Interviewer: "You really love them." Client: "I do, and I enjoy singing with the community chorus. They count on me. They're short of tenors. I have a lot of friends there." Interviewer: "You have a lot of reasons to stay healthy." Yeah, it kind of projects it forward, ties it back into purpose in this intervention. Client: "At least I'm trying. I'm not sure how much to do." Interviewer: "How much activity?" Client: "I don't want to overdo it. I played golf last week and I got this pain in my shoulder. The doctor said it was just muscle pain, but it scared me." Interviewer: "You don't want to have another heart attack." Client: "No, one is enough." Interviewer: "And sometimes you wonder how much exercise is good for you." Client: "Well, I know I need to stay active. Use it or lose it, they say. I want to get my strength back. And they said regular exercise is good. Interviewer, so that's a puzzle for you. How to be active enough to get your strength back and be healthy, but not so much that would put you in danger. It goes on a little further, but then the point is an expert reflection or a good reflection is where you can take out the interviewer client words and it sounds like the client is speaking the whole story himself. So just a quick excerpt. And this is the same dialogue I just spoke. So it would be the client speaking, but it's including the interviewer comments as if it's one person. The surgery was quite an ordeal, I can tell you. I'm lucky to be here. I could easily have died. They said there was 90% blockage, and at my age, that kind of surgery is major, but I made it through and I'm glad. I have plenty to live for. My family is important. And that was just, gave me goosebumps. I could just see that it was like the interviewer disappeared in that dialogue. So maybe that's helpful in understanding what reflection that's expertly done sounds like.
And
Go ahead.
I was going to say that sometimes I find that when my reflections are wrong, it's almost more effective so that it forces the client to go back and correct me, and they end up deepening like their exploration of the subject. So like, don't be afraid of being wrong because the client's going to correct you anyway.
Yeah, and they do talk about that in MI, not to be afraid of making a mistake because they'll just correct you. Exactly.
Ted Crawford and Albert Ellis have a book where they do that kind of clarifying back and forth. That's really a helpful resource for this same sort of thing.
Yeah, as I hear you read that transcript, the way that I remember MI talking, the basic or the foundational text of MI, with Rolnick and Miller, they talk about a reflection being, as long as you're actively listening and genuinely curious and empathic, it's almost an educated guess of what they're saying. Because they didn't quite say that, but because you're attuned and empathic, you can say, not quite what they said, and have it deepen the understanding and build the therapeutic alliance. And it really is almost like an art along with being a skill. And it's like, Bill Miller says, he developed MI and he still, is refining and practicing and getting better at reflecting. It's a journey, not a destination. So I guess we'll get started, even though I see some empty chairs, just in the interest of time. So we ended on elicit, provide, elicit, and since we're not in person, I'm not going to do the practice because that would be chaos on something like Zoom. So the next foundational skill I want to talk about is permission questions. And what it is, it's a yes or no question to ask clients permission to engage in certain conversation. Why is it important? For me, it helps the client feel like they have a say, they have a voice, right? If you ask permission to, hey, would it be okay if we explored your understanding of the nature of addiction, or if we explored your understanding of what abstinence means to you, and they say yes, it's incredibly empowering. And I use permission questions a lot. Especially as the relationship is new and I'm trying to create that therapeutic alliance. So a few examples, can I give you a few ideas? May I provide an alternative idea? Can we switch directions for a moment? So just a really simple skill, but a profound skill when it's used in the right the right at the right time. Let's see here. So practice. Change talk. So change talk is, if we were all in the mining industry and we were mining for gold, this is what we're mining for. This is what we're asking questions to uncover. This is what we get really excited about when we see. And change talk is kind of sprinkled in a paragraph of what a client will be saying. You know, there'll be sustained talk and change talk sprinkled in the same paragraph of what, as you speak to somebody. So we want to get really curious and really we want to get really skilled about how to get them to be the one doing the change talk rather than us doing the change talk. You know, if I ask you guys, which is more effective, you know, when, or I guess, why is it more effective for the client to be saying the change talk rather than us saying the change talk? That might be kind of an obvious question because of the slide that I have up. I just realized because I just gave you the answer. But
It works.
Yeah, it promotes, they believe it more. You know, when they're saying it, they believe it. They're the author of the message. So the three things we want to do with change talk is we want to see it. We got to know what change talk is and isn't in relation to sustained talk. We want to evoke it or mine it if we were miners, and then we want to reinforce it and get really greedy. If we can have the conversation start to gain momentum with more and more change talk, the client gets more and more confidence. They get more and more hope, and the conversation goes in a direction that's more likely for the client to end in an actual positive behavior change. When there's more change talk, there's going to be more positive behavior change. Okay, so here's an example of the sprinkling that I talked about. Can I have somebody just read that paragraph just so I'm not talking so much?
Yeah, I'll read it. I want to manage my medications and follow the doctor's suggestions, but I often don't feel good, and it's just frustrating to have to work so hard at this.
So where is the change talk and where is the sustained talk in this paragraph?
They want something, which is change talk.
Yes, they want the positive. They want the positive change behavior talk, right? They want to manage their medications and follow the doctor's suggestions, but sustained talk, sustained talk, sustained talk.
So sustained talk is them not changing.
Yes.
They want to do the same thing. Okay.
Yes. So to color code it, the green is the change talk, and the red is the sustained talk. So how to respond to change talk, in all caps, shouting, "Get greedy!" Okay, so the skill to mine change talk is ORS. And this is my acronym that I probably use the most when I'm using motivational interviewing, is open-ended questions, affirmations, reflections, and summaries. And we want to justify the change talk. We want to provide examples of proof, and we want to understand the implications of change talk. And like we already said, why the more the clients say the change talk, the more they believe it. rather than us saying the change talk. They're going to just start to check out if we're the ones talking all the time. So here's another example. Client says, can I have another volunteer to read this?
Sure. I've stuck with an eating and exercise plan before, almost for a full year, and I did feel better. Now I just can't seem to get with the program. I want to, but it's really hard, especially with my busy schedule.
Okay. And to color code it, there is the change and sustain talk. So me as a therapist, as I'm listening to clients, especially this is the ambivalent stage of change. They have compelling reasons to change and compelling reasons to stay the same. And that's why they're seeing us in the first place. If all they had was compelling reasons to change, they would have changed. But they have both. So it's our jobs, pardon me while I get comfy, it's our jobs to recognize, evoke, and what was the third one? Reinforce change talk. So there's another example of smoking in the interest of time. I'll skip through that. Change talk types. So there's change talk in a variety of areas. And the acronym here is DARN CATS, but I don't have it set up for CAT. It's committed, taking steps, and problem recognition. So we want to assess in their change talk if there's desire to change, if they have the ability to change. Maybe they I know I keep going back to David. Maybe they don't know, what the difference is in food that's addictive versus not addictive, or that's, healthy versus not healthy. Judy, is it Judy or Judith?
Judy, thank you.
Judy, you mentioned, Chase, your chemical is alcohol and my chemical is sugar, flour, grain, fat. What's that?
Starches, fats, and more.
Starches and more. So if you didn't know that, that would be a huge hindrance in your ability to change. And that's where illicit provide illicit would come into play, right? We would provide psychoeducation about what foods are dangerous. And after that, we have a reason. What's their reason for wanting to change? And that's why land that we touched on previously, that we want to get greedy, we want to evoke it, we want to see it, evoke it, reinforce it. Why do they need to change? I think David mentioned they're going to lose a toe, or they're already missing a toe. They can have some compelling reasons to change, along with compelling reasons to stay the exact same. And then we want to commit them to mutually agreed upon tasks and goals. And then we want to talk about what those steps are, those first steps to positive behavior change. And we want to identify what barriers or problems they may encounter, kind of like when I did that pretty rough role play with Kathy about what problems happen after 3 weeks. She said the wheels kind of fall off after 3 weeks. We want to identify what problems are going to come up. So there's all kinds of different change talk types that will surface as you engage in these conversations. So strategies for mining change talk, like we said, there's ORs, open-ended evocative questions. An example of that would be, can you tell me more about what's important for you in, could you tell me more about what starts you in that first few weeks of eating more I want to say clean. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but eating healthier. What's the impetus that starts that process, Kathy? And that's an open-ended question for her to say, well, I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I couldn't fit in my clothes. My doctor scared me the last time I talked to him, because he said my HbA1c was, out of control. My, whatever comes up from that open-ended question, we want to be strategic in how we ask that question. And the importance ruler Mary touched on. This is a question I use a lot. On a scale from 1 to 10, how important is beginning a program of abstinence for you? And let's say a client says, "Oh, well, it's an 8, it's a 9. It's really important." I might say, "Wow, this is a big deal for you. Help me understand why it's not a 5." This might seem like a silly question, but help me understand why it's not a 5 for you. And we're looking for the B word, which is because. Well, because, what are some of the answers that you guys have encountered? Like David or Judy or Cynthia, what are some of those answers that if you ask that question to clients or to people that you're working with?
Because I think I'm going to die because the pain is so great. I can't stand walking on my feet anymore. Because I have fog in my brain. Because I weigh 224 pounds. That's too much for a 5'4" person.
Thank you. That's it's hearing you guys say the change talk is helpful for me rather than me trying to manufacture what it sounds like. So maybe I'll do a little more of that. Now, querying extremes. Let's say you ask a question, or let's say the client brings up, food hasn't been that big of a problem for me. A querying extreme would sound like, so food has never been a problem for you in your whole life, and not in a condescending way. You could be, you got to be really careful that you're in a place of curiosity and empathy and compassion if you ask that question, because that's not what they said. But I'm doing a little bit of it's an amplified reflection when I query the extreme by saying, so food has never been a problem for you? And they say, well, no, my doctor said that if I don't lose X amount of weight in X amount of time, that I'm going to be full-blown type 2 diabetes in 3 months. And then all of a sudden you've got them on the change talk train again. And the last is exploring goals and values, and that's more the why land. And why land is also, rich in change talk as long as we're asking the right questions.
Chase?
Yeah.
Your amplified question, so food's never been a problem to you in your whole life. And the patient says, well, no, it's my doctor who said if I don't lose weight, I'm going to have full-blown diabetes. They haven't said that food's a problem. Do I just go over to the diabetes?
Good point. So if they said that answer, what would be a follow-up question to help tie food to a problem to evoke change talk?
So with diabetes, do you think food and eating has an impact on losing weight? Or what impact do you think food and eating might have? What impact do you think your food and eating might have on losing weight?
Do you see how you switch that to an open-ended?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did it, so I'll remember.
So yeah, we want to focus on the what, why, and how, those various lands, by a few different ways here, right? By focusing on specific behavior to change, right? So after we identify that full-blown diabetes is related to food, you know, we then want to get into, well, what about food is important for you to change? And maybe they say, I don't know. And then we go to elicit, provide, elicit. Would it be okay if I made a recommendation for people that have been in your similar situation that aren't sure about what the next step is? And David, as a nutritionist, would be, you know, very well versed. And so I'm sorry if I'm sure several of you are nutritionists that I'm not including you in the conversation, but that's where your expertise can come into play by going into elicit, provide, elicit. We talked about scaling already. Listen carefully, get greedy, summarize. Okay, and now number 8, investigate if client wants to explore how to change, would be another permission question. So you know, if we summarize the change talk of, so you've told me that it's a 9 of 10 on importance for you to change, because you don't want to be full-blown diabetic, because it's painful for you to stand on your feet, because it's not healthy to weigh 224 pounds being 5'4", like you mentioned. Would it be okay if we explored a few different ways that have proven to be successful for other people that have been in similar situations? And again, that's a permission question that helps them feel bought in, that helps them feel like they have a voice, that helps them feel like I'm not a bossy counselor from hell, and that they're a part of the conversation, not just being lectured to. So the next objective we have is understanding and enhancing clients' confidence to change. And I want to skip through a few things. I'm looking at the slide on my phone along with the PowerPoint. Give me one moment here, because I want to get into some skills. So I'm going to skip over some stuff that I'll share with you guys. So don't be alarmed. This doesn't come from motivational interviewing, but this is another way that I like to conceptualize change. Change first starts with hope. People, when they first come into contact with us, if they haven't had any kind of recovery or any kind of abstinence, they're hopeless. They are overwhelmed and scared and frustrated and pissed and do not know what to do, right? And hope comes from confidence. Confidence comes from a credible plan, you know, with a therapist and a nutritionist. And that comes from assessment and from understanding using ORs, using elicit, provide, elicit, using permission questions. I really like this quote: optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Helen Keller. Talk about somebody who, you know, at some point in her life must have felt completely hopeless and scared and doesn't know what to do. You know, I know as a recovering addict alcoholic that I felt like that, you know, before I entered treatment, that I felt hopeless. And I had some talented people, you know, guide me through that journey using some of these skills with MI. So the 4 tasks of MI, from a I guess a macro level, is engaging and partnering, focusing on what land, evoking change talk and why land, and planning and how land, And we want to engage and partner through focusing. So moving toward agreed upon goals and flipping concerns into goals. So that's another skill, is flipping a complaint into a goal. That I often do early on in the therapeutic relationship. You know, if they say, I'm so frustrated, I've tried every diet on the face of the earth, and I can't lose weight no matter what I do. So I hear you loud and clear, and it's important to you to find something that's sustainable for losing weight. Is that right? Just simply flipping a concern into a goal is another foundational skill in MI. Give me 1 second here. I'm trying to skim through in the interest of time to get through. Let's see. So I guess if we can just elaborate on flipping concerns and complaints into goals. Initially, concerns can be, you know, viewed as sustained talk, and maybe if it happens over and over, as resistance, right? So if somebody says, for example, I don't feel safe, I have nightmares, and I don't know what to do. First, empathy. You know, you're in a difficult position, haunted by what has happened to you. Second, flip. So Mary, you kind of asked, Chase, what are you doing there? How are you reflecting? Here's a better way for me to break it down. I'm first doing empathy, and then I'm flipping that concern into a goal. You know, together we can work to help you feel safe again and to find a way to work through this trauma. How does that sound? And that again is almost, it has elements of elicit, provide, elicit. At the end of that, I'm eliciting, are we on the same page? Or does, you know, and that allows them to have a voice. And again, that I'm not a bossy counselor from hell, I'm a guide. I'm finding that balance in between being too passive and too bossy. There's another example of focusing. So transitioning from what land to why land. We've already kind of touched on that. Sorry guys, I'm going to skip around here a little bit. So resistance is what's often really scary for clinicians. You know, and what to do with resistance. The best approach for resistance is to prevent it. So hopefully if you guys are practicing a lot of these skills and you have a lot of empathy and compassion with the philosophy of MI, you're going to prevent resistance in the first place. But if resistance does pop up, what do we do with it? And that goes into with them. So when a client has resistance, they often are thinking, you know, what's in it for me? And emotions such as motivation can help a client initiate, maintain effort to succeed. But what I wanted to get was rolling with resistance. So this is back to the original formula that we had. So roll with resistance. We want to see it, recognize it, just like change talk, but we don't want to further it. And how would you guys further it? How would you guys unwittingly further resistance as a therapist or as a change agent.
Coercing the patient to do something or asking them to explain further about why it's impossible.
Amen, amen. Yeah, getting into an argument with them or coercing them that about covers it, right? That's going to be a never-ending battle, and we're going to lose therapeutic alliance, and we're going to lose them, and the chances of them showing up to treatment again or engaging in positive change behavior go down the more that we further resistance. We want to avoid it. We want to prevent it in the first place, but if it happens, we want to see it and recognize it and roll with it. So resistance or reactance is complex. So let me find.
Chase, I'm wondering too if maybe the see it piece of resistance isn't really is really an important piece, because I know sometimes when I as a therapist have missed pieces of somebody's pain or somebody just trying to touch on an issue, I've come across as not as understanding or empathic. So I know that you don't want to strengthen it, but I think when you say I see it, it's like those little phrases you've been throwing out where you say, I get you, I understand, this is difficult for you. So it's like that I see it piece is important, but just to not shows empathy and engagement, and you're understanding the client, but then not doing things to make it bigger.
Yeah, we want to validate how they're feeling, and then we want to reflect what their concern is into a goal, rather than asking more clarifying questions about how impossible it is to change. And I apologize for having to skip through so many slides and having some silence as I look at this. And I think my slides are a little redundant here for some reason. So resistance, this is what I was looking for. Resistance isn't a character flaw. Often results from anxiety, doubt, or a lack of resources, fear, and thus we might have empathy for resistance rather than anger. Sometimes as a therapist working with clients that continue to argue with me about not wanting to change a behavior that's eventually going to kill them as a therapist working in a treatment center, it's easy to slip into wanting to just make them see why they need to do something. It's just important, again, that first of all, we prevent it, but if it comes up that we roll with resistance, and I'm trying to find that. So best strategies for lung resistance, prevent it, we already talked about. So skill, prevent resistance through partnering. So I don't know if you guys have noticed that I've tried to use we language while we've been talking, or while I've been talking in the role plays. And some examples of using we language is, can we discuss a few ideas about why it's important for you to change how you're eating? Let's review your goals for our meeting today. Can we partner on some ideas about how to make this plan work for you? Another skill for preventing resistance through partnering is, again, what we've already touched on, what David mentioned, treating clients with deep respect and dignity, view them as partners, as individuals, cultivating compassion that they're suffering and that they're not just bad or difficult, and asking, again, a lot of permission questions. So one thing I'll do in the trainings when I'm in person is I'll get people in groups of 2, and I'll have them do, how many permission questions can you ask in 90 seconds? Ready, set, go. And it's hard to continue to keep coming up with permission questions, but it gets the, some muscle memory going in your brain for just relying on permission questions throughout the conversation in therapy or through counseling or through a nutrition. I don't know what you would call that, a nutrition session, nutritionist. What's that called?
Assessment or consultation.
Okay. Emphasize personal choice and do not own responsibility for clients' performance. So if somebody says, you know what, I'm just not sure that I want to waste another hour in a 12-step meeting. Diffusing that resistance through saying, I can hear the frustration in your voice right now, and I want you to know, Kathy, that it really is up to you. That you will decide if you're going to make this change, that this is your call, and that I do hope you decide to make this change. And I guess I'm curious, what at this point, what are your intentions? So with each one of those, I'm just trying to diffuse the resistance. So resistance matters. What is resistance in counseling situations? Might actually be ambivalence or lack of confidence. So if we start to get into a lot of resistance, that's when we may need to step back and assess. Do you remember the acronym DARN? Desire, ability, reason, and need. Maybe they're scared. Maybe we've started to talk about the how to change and the what to change too soon, and they feel a lack of confidence and desirability, reason, or need. And we need to assess some ambivalence and go back to some scaling questions, go back to elicit, provide, elicit, go back to open-ended questions and get into a different why land. So guys, I, for some reason, chose to use slides that have multiple slides, or the slides are repeating themselves, and that's my bad. But that pretty much covers most of what I wanted to talk about with motivational interviewing, and it's 3 minutes after 4, so it's been just over 2 hours. We haven't talked at all about mind-body bridging. And I worry that if I talk about mind-body bridging, that it might kind of be information overload. So I guess mind-body bridging, I could do an experiential activity with you guys. It would take about 10 minutes. And then I could send you a handout that goes through the steps of it that I created. Would you guys, do you guys have another 10 to 15 minutes to do mind-body bridging? I see 2 heads nodding. Before we jump into mind-body bridging, are there any questions for me that are still lingering about motivational interviewing, or any confusion, or you wanted me to talk about this, but I didn't quite get there? So I'll take the silence as agreement. So the last thing I'll say about MI is if addiction is a stress response disease, MI is a great tool in lowering the stress of changing in that hour of therapy, right? If you're a bossy counselor from hell and you're not using these skills in MI, it's going to be a really stressful, difficult, horrible conversation. And it's going to stack the odds that the client leaves the session more confused, more frustrated, and at more risk of relapse if we're not using motivational interviewing as we approach ambivalence or as we approach resistance. So before I share my slides, I'll make sure that I share the right slides. And yeah, the next part that I wanted to, the last part that I wanted to cover, mind-body bridging, just requires a piece of paper that's blank on both sides. So this is a pretty straightforward, pretty simple exercise. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do is in the center of the piece of paper, I want you guys to draw an egg shape. And in that egg, I want you guys to write the word mind, M-I-N-D, and today's date, which is 4/28. And I'll time you guys without editing or filtering. I want you guys to free write what's on your mind lately that's been stressful, that's been that you're worried about, that you're mad about, that you're sad about. Just what occupies a lot of your thought, effort, emotion, energy, and just without editing or filtering, just write words or sentences all around that egg, and just scatter your thoughts. You can't do it right or wrong, and I'll time you. And if there's not any questions, ready, set, go. And I won't ask you guys to share details of what you're writing, so just feel free to just dump just whatever is on your mind, whatever's been, whatever you've been resentful about lately and fear about lately, angry about lately. Could also be things you're looking forward to. Okay, jot down your last few thoughts. And stress can show itself in a variety of ways. And two ways that we want to focus on in this exercise is mind clutter. So mind clutter is when you feel overwhelmed with a variety of thoughts, or you're hyper focused on one thought in particular. You know, so let's take something that you're afraid of or anxious of, for example. The more you think about or worry about something, the stronger it becomes. Or if it's something you're angry about, the more you think about it, the more resentful and angry you become. And you're not in the present moment. Your mind is either in the future worrying about it, or in the past resenting it, or you're depressed about it. And so that's mind clutter. And the other way that stress can show itself is body tension. So when I feel anxiety, for example, my back will tense up, my heart will start racing, my body will sweat. So now on your map, things that are low mind clutter and body tension, I'll invite you to put 1 plus sign next to it. Things that are medium mind clutter and body tension, put 2 plus signs next to it. And things that are high mind clutter and body tension or really distressing to you, put 3 plus signs next to it. And if you wrote something that's not distressing, just put a 0 with a slash next to it. But we're just trying to create a hierarchy of stress or distress. And really, I'm interested in the things that are the most distressing to you right now. So your 3s and your 2s. Now, mind-body bridging has the philosophy that the things that are most distressing to you are distressing to you because we have rules about how we should be, how others should be, and how the world should be. So, for example, in the middle of graduate school, I loaned a friend some money that I didn't have. And I said, look, please pay me back. I don't have this money to give to you. And I never heard from him again. So one requirement I had, or one rule that I had, is I shouldn't be such a freaking people pleaser. And number 2, people should do what they say they're going to do. And these requirements or rules can be completely rational or completely irrational, but they're still precipitating a lot of distress. So next to your 3 plus signs, just put a little R and circle it and write out what that rule sounds like to you in your own words. And it's I should or I shouldn't, they should or shouldn't, the world should or shouldn't, people I love shouldn't suffer. I should lose weight, I should have more money, whatever the stressor is, what's its associated requirement. And let's do it for two of your stressors, just for the sake of time. Are we good? Okay. Now, as you guys look at your map of all these stressors and at your requirements, I want you to rate yourself 1 low, 10 high. Where's your mind clutter right now? And 1 low, 10 high, where's your body tension? And just have 2 sets of numbers. Essentially, how distressed are you right now as you look at this map? Okay. And the next part of this, the bridging part of mind-body bridging is mindfulness or meditation, which I'm sure you guys have touched on. And there's a lot of definitions for mindfulness or meditation. One definition that I like is using your 5 senses to be right here, right now. And when your mind wanders, to notice it non-judgmentally and return back to the present moment over and over and over. So I'm just going to go through progressive muscle relaxation, and then we'll map again, and then we're done. So I want you guys to sit in a relatively upright position with both of your feet flat on the floor.
Sorry.
And just take a moment to notice what it's like to be in the room that you're in right now. And notice what sounds you can hear. Notice the just items in the room that you can see. Notice how many different colors there are in the room. And notice that while we're scanning our environment, that we're breathing. And just notice where you can feel your breath most strongly. Can you feel your breath more in your belly or in your chest? Can you feel your breath more when you breathe in or you breathe out? Can you notice that the air, when you breathe in, is cooler and then warmer when you exhale because it's been in your lungs? Okay, and then I want you to put one hand on your belly, and starting at your belly and ending in your chest, I want you to breathe in as much air as you can. And then slowly exhale all that air out. Let's do it one more time. Inhale as much as you can. Slowly exhale. Okay, and then go to your feet and notice what your feet feel like. Notice the sensation of your socks against your skin, or your shoes against your skin, or if you're barefoot against the flooring. And I want you to take your toe and your feet muscles and tense them for 2 seconds. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. Big breath in from your belly. Then slowly relax your toes and your feet. Then come up to your calves and notice what your calves feel like against your clothing or against the chair that you're sitting in. Does your left calf feel different from your right calf? And then go up on your tiptoes and flex your calf muscles. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. Big breath in. Slowly exhale and relax your calves. Okay, I see some yawning, and that's a good sign. Go up to your knees and to your thighs. And notice what the clothing feels like against your skin. Notice the pressure of your hamstrings and your seat. And then push down against the ground and flex your quad muscles, or you can straighten your legs and flex your quad muscles. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000. Big breath in. Then slowly breathe out and relax. Okay. Then come up to your stomach and try to notice the inside of what your stomach feels like. Are you hungry? Does it hurt? Does it feel normal? Are you digesting food? And then flex your stomach muscles. 1,000, 2, 1,000. Big breath in. Slow exhale. Then put one hand over your heart. And notice if you can feel your heart beating. Is your heart beating faster or slower than normal? Is it beating more strongly or softly? Can you feel the warmth of your hand on your chest? Okay, then put your hand back down and come up to your neck and your shoulders and notice how your clothing feels against your skin around your neck and shoulders. For those of you who have hair, notice what your hair feels like against your skin. And then shrug your shoulders up to your ears. 1,000, 2, 1,000. Big breath. Then keep breathing from your belly and do 2 head rolls one way. Keep breathing from your belly. And then 2 head rolls the other way. Keep breathing from your belly. Okay, and if your mind has wandered, that's okay, it happens. Just notice it and come back. We're almost done. Keep breathing from your belly and do 2 shoulder rolls one way. And then 2 shoulder rolls the other way. Okay, and then the last part is I invite you guys to count as you breathe in, that's 1. And as you breathe out, that's 2. And go until you get to 10. And then hold up your pens to the screen so that I know you're done. Okay, I think I saw everybody's pen. Now, this last step, I want us to continue to use our 5 senses to be right here, right now. So keep feeling your body in the chair, keep noticing your breath, and flip the paper over to a blank side. And feel the pen in your hand and watch the ink go on the paper as you draw the egg and write mind and today's date. And for just a minute, just jot down whatever comes up that's on your mind right now. You can't do this right or wrong. You might have a lot or a little, but continue to use your 5 senses to be in the present moment as you write. Hear any background sounds that may be in the room? Keep noticing your breath. Keep watching the ink go on the paper. And jot down your last few thoughts. Okay, and then 1 low, 10 high. Where's your mind clutter? right now at this moment, and then write that down. And then 1 low, 10 high, where's your body tension? And write that down. So you should have 2 sets of numbers. And I just have a couple questions for you about this exercise, and then you guys can ask me a question and we'll wrap up. If you guys are willing, what were your first 2 numbers, and then what were your second 2 numbers? Just out of curiosity.
Mine were 7, 6, and 5, 4.
Okay.
Mine were 8 and 8 and 5 and 5.
Okay.
I was 6 and 4 and 4 and 4.
I was 8 and 9 and 4 and 5.
And what was the difference in the second map compared to the first map, as far as the feeling of the second map and the content of the second map compared to the first map? Was there any difference for you guys?
Hugely different.
What was the difference, Judy?
The first one was extremely stressed out. I mean, a number of issues. I mean, number. And on the second, I was like talking about being tired, and this is the most rest I've gotten sitting in this chair today, and I keep yawning and breathing deeper. So, and I want to go to sleep.
Awesome. Thank you, Judy. Anybody else, any differences between the second and first map?
Mine on the first map was lots of things to do. Oh my God, things to do. And on the second map, I put down so much to do, prioritize. But the rest of the things were, I'm grateful to be abstinent. The lake is so beautiful. I love my husband. Prayers for my sponsor. Breathing. Dinner's coming. Totally different. Thank you.
I know I've gone over it. I just want to notice with you guys that in the second map, I didn't say, now, Cynthia, I want you to do a happy, positive map. I just said, hey, write whatever comes up. And from a brain perspective, the first map is on midbrain screaming at us. And then after we take something like a progressive muscle relaxation or mindfulness, it naturally rests the midbrain. The prefrontal cortex starts to come back online, and you have gratitude, and you have love, and you have more solutions, and you're able to think. And as it relates to addiction, being able to perceive and manage stress is a huge, a crucial task. And this is something that I use as a therapist treating addiction constantly, that I've found to be really, really helpful for quite a few clients. Not every client, some people hate this, but most people that I work with really enjoy it. And I'll open it up for any questions for me, but I'm worried that I've gone over about a half an hour and you guys are like, well, let's go. So I guess any questions or noticings for me before we wrap up?
So the slides will be available, because I know that you went through, many of them, and I was listening, but it was a lot of material in a short time, which I know you said you do this over days.
Yes.
So it's much appreciated, because it's not easy to whittle down something that is so broad. I mean, something that you do in a few days to just 2 hours. And thank you for your attempts.
Yeah. You're very
And,
welcome. I'm happy to, and yes, I will make sure the right slides are available to you. along
oh,
with the
that's even
handouts.
better. That's even better. I wasn't even asking you to do that much work, but if you can, that's even greater. And also, I appreciated your willingness to listen to us. A lot of us are food addicts, and it's the same, but it's different. I mean, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And to try to put it in the context of food addiction, because I know from talking to your mom that that's not always easy, because that's not where you really come from. You know, where she comes from, but not where you come from. And I really appreciate your attempt. I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks, Judy.
And I want to thank you and Kathy for introducing us to you. Thank you very much. Really, so much appreciated the insights and the very practical skills. So I'm looking forward to perusing the slides and also the handout for this particular activity here at the end. It was very, very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia.
And you mentioned, Chase, there were a couple other handouts you would make available to us, and I'd have to go through to what it was, but that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah, the Institute for Addiction Studies stuff. I'll make sure that that's included.
Great.
And I think there was something else too, but I don't remember.
There was, thank you, Chase. It's so much nicer to share this with this group that we've got to know along with an expert. It's so much nicer than it's much easier than just reading about it. It's hard to read about motivational interviewing and figure out what to say and do. So your experience sharing on a Friday afternoon is greatly appreciated. Thank you. One of the references I would love is you said the empathy, the empathy book, Curious Empathy, I think. Could you give us, would you say Carl somebody?
Carl Rogers, Accurate Empathy.
Thank you. Funny how I forgot the word accurate.
You're okay. I don't have that. That would just be, one of Carl Rogers' like basic texts that motivational interviewing borrows from. That's what a lot of motivational interviewing's foundation is built upon, is Carl Rogers' Accurate Empathy and Unconditional Positive Regard. So I don't have like a handout or a resource for Carl Rogers stuff. I just referenced him while talking.
I can Google it. Thank you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, thanks, Chase. I sure appreciate it. I learn every time I talk with you about these kinds of things. It's so helpful. So I just know it's this ongoing practice that just builds our own confidence and our capacities and, develops this art that this engagement is, this genuine passion and willingness to help others, coupled with skills development will be finally sufficient for what we're going to do, I believe. So, and then I can just get together with you later and get those items sent to me, and then I can get them out to the group.
Okay.
Those things you mentioned. Okay.
Well, great to meet all of you, and I hope to run into you sometime down the road.
In the streets of Boston.
In the streets. Okay. Have a good day, guys.
Everybody, thanks, Jane.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.